Welcome. For centuries, the meaning of doctor had its original meaning. Educator, somebody that teaches. But in the last few years, it has become the meaning of surgeon, prescriber, physician. This is the person people choose to visit when disorder sets in or disease takes hold of them. Today we're going to explore what if the 10 main leading causes of death, according to science and research, meta-analysis science, which I will explain to you in a moment, demonstrates and shows clearly all 10 of those leading causes of death can potentially be prevented. In this video, today we're going to explore what it means. If you choose, you take accountability of your decisions for your own health. You make choices for a healthy future and thriving optimal well-being. What do you want your health to look like? What does thriving optimal well-being look and feel like? What's the kind of experience you believe you would have if you are in thriving optimal well-being? This is the warning. Get a strong cup of coffee or your favorite cup of tea. If your spouse is close by, ask them to hold your hand, or a friend, hold their hand. Buckle up. Be ready. This is a warning. You will not like what I'm going to share with you, and you may not want to hear this. I'm asking you, please stay to the end and listen to what we have to share. This may be a life-changing clip for you. We're going to educate and teach you about the truth. Not my opinion, not anybody's opinion, real evidence-based science. But in the end, I will offer you how you can change the outcome for you. I did warn you, this is not going to be an easy beginning. This is a clear warning. However, if you do find during this clip you are on the wrong path, please sit tight. Please stay to the end, because we will show you how you can make different choices for your health and your life. We are going to explore the risks. We're going to amplify them through the magnifying glass, and we're going to look at what these really mean for you and me and our health. We will show you how you can determine where you are on the risk indicators in the red, the yellow, or the green. We will talk about being in the high-risk red zone and how we could possibly move from the red zone to the low risk, the green zone. Today we're going to talk about oxidative stress and chronic inflammation. You may ask, why do we talk about oxidative stress? Why do we talk about chronic inflammation when we talk about the leading causes of death? It is important that we explore what are the leading root causes, the fundamental root causes of all chronic diseases, which includes all autoimmune diseases. Let's explore. Number 1, cellular oxidative stress. Number 2, LDL cholesterol that goes up. I will explain how this works. Serious chronic inflammation. And then at the root of all, number 4, is actually the primary root cause of all chronic diseases. It is cellular starvation. Our cells die due to cellular nutritional deficiencies. In this channel and today, I'm not going to share my opinion or any doctor or scientist or expert or specialist opinion. We are really going to explore and look at what the science, the real science, tell us. Due to space, we only posted a few of the science of most of the most esteemed research and science institutes. And these were even published very recently. If we look at this study as an example, it was published on 3 March 2025, which is just a few months ago. It says ultra-processed foods and risk of all-cause mortality, an updated systemic review, and dose response meta-analysis of prospective cohort studies. So a meta-analysis means where they take on one topic, and in this case they looked at ultra-processed foods and the leading causes of death, and they take all this research on the topic. They discard those that are distorted or not compliant with real gold standard science and research. And they only include, related to that topic, the science and research that are good gold standard research. And this was published on the 23rd of March. If we, for example, look at this study, 43 gold standard studies on the same topic was published, and it says ultra-processed food and chronic non-communicable diseases. I'll explain what that means in a moment. A systemic review and meta-analysis, and they included 43 observational studies. Oxidative stress of ultra-processed Western diet foods. This study, leading causes of death globally. In this study, they say that 7 out of the 10 leading causes of all deaths worldwide are from non-communicable diseases. But all 10 has a high probability to be prevented. And that is what we're really going to explore in this study. Let's look at the definition of non-communicable diseases, which 7 out of the 10 leading causes of death are non-communicable, meaning I can't transfer it from one person to another. It's not a virus, a bacteria that is contagious. So 7 out of the 10 of these diseases, as they are listed here, heart attack, stroke, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, low respiratory infections, tracheobronchus and lung cancers, Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, diabetes, type 2 diabetes, kidney diseases, and tuberculosis. Now, 7 of those cannot be transferred from one person to another, but all 10 these can potentially be prevented. And that is what we're interested in. To be honest, most of this I know as a medical doctor that takes the time to read the science and the research. But this specific one hit me to the core. Processed foods and diet, the quality of the diet in pregnancy may affect child neurodevelopment disorders. We're talking autism, which is exponentially on the rise in the last few decades. ADHD, exponentially on the rise. Low IQ. This is scary stuff, and this is disturbing. Now, when I read this research, I must admit, I was shaken. I was distraught. In a joking manner, I can say, well, I was born before that. So maybe I'm personally not as much as a victim of this. However, my children and grandchildren. And this is just a joke. But the reality of this really made me shrink, made me shrug and say, what on earth is happening? Chronic inflammation. Here's a study that shows from 1960 until 2020, when this research was done, as exponentially the red curve shows how CRP levels, how we as doctors measure at the blood pathology laboratory, chronic inflammation has risen. In direct correlation, IQ has declined. CRP, chronic inflammation, it's a marker that any doctor will put on the script to do if we suspect chronic inflammation. And I've just told you that all the research shows that chronic inflammation is the leading cause of all chronic and autoimmune diseases. But imagine this. The whole world population's IQ is going down, not by opinion, measurably proven. Everybody, every living being has experienced inflammation at some point in time in many or at least one part of the body. Inflammation per se is not a bad thing. God never creates anything bad. Everything is created by Him for a purpose. Acute inflammation is part of the self-healing mechanism. Critically important for life, critically important for us being healthy. So if I have a scar, a thorn, cut myself, sprain my ankle, acute inflammation will set in. It makes a fire, it heats up, you will see it swell, there's swelling, it's red and it's hot. It is making a fire to burn all the pathogens, the bacterial viruses that could enter where the damaged tissue is and cause infection. So acute inflammation is very good to prevent us from getting infection that could, if it's chronic infection, could cause all kinds of diseases, including septicemia. And that is the role of acute inflammation. But acute inflammation must be switched off. I will make another video on this topic, but this is what inflammation looks like and feels like. So let's explore what cellular oxidative stress looks like. This is oxidative stress in nature. Metal rusting, eroding and degenerating layer for layer. That is rusting or oxidative stress. So how does oxidative stress relate to our body's cells? If a normal cell, an animated image of it, gets attacked by free radicals, then it starts to rust. Oxidative stress sets in and it erodes and degenerates until the cell dies. So if we look at a tomato, and when the free radical sets in, the tomato is oxidized and it dies. In Afrikaans, we use the word vrot. So a normal cell gets attacked by the free radicals and it's an oxidized cell and it dies. Ecosh says these are the typical diseases that could set in when there's cellular oxidative stress. Now, a very important question would be, what causes cellular oxidative stress? Diet, nutritional deficiencies, smoking, and this includes vaping. Vaping often is worse than normal cigarette smoking. Overabuse of alcohol, pesticides, insecticides that they spray on the crops, on the food, exposure to toxins, inadequate intake of fruit and vegetables that contain polyphenols, flavonoids, antioxidants, contaminants, excessive exercise. So things like the marathon running, the extreme sport, extreme exercise, that will cause oxidative stress, but also inadequate physical exercise will also cause oxidative stress. Lack of good nutrition, in other words, when it's nutrient empty foods we take versus nutrient dense foods. Stress, all kinds of stress. And we know that stress is exponentially rising throughout the world. All kinds of fast foods, air and water pollution, all drugs, all chemical drugs, all pharmaceutical, prescribed social drugs, medications, and chemical treatments, all cause oxidative stress. Let's now look at the specifics of oxidative stress. In this case, oxidative stress, erosion and degeneration of the myelin sheath of a neuron, a neural cell, a brain cell, a nerve cell. So outside, and you don't have to remember these important words, medical terms, outside the electrical fibers of a nerve cell, a neuron, we have a fat layer that is like a conduit around it. The name is a myelin sheath. And when oxidative stress sets in, it erodes the myelin sheath. And this is how the neuron will actually communicate. And when there's gaps in it, because some of it's been eroded and degenerated, it's not there. The communication will break down. Oxidative stress of the DNA strand. Oxidative stress of the brain. So here we can see the healthy brain, oxidative free radicals, poisons, toxins, and the defense mechanisms are in balance. But when the free radicals cannot be neutralized, the toxins are too much, they don't detox from the body, and the defense mechanisms are not sufficient, then we have a diseased brain. Let's look at the images of the brain and when oxidative stress actually sets in the Alzheimer brain. So here we can see the erosion and the degeneration of the brain. Another image of the normal brain versus an Alzheimer's brain when oxidative stress, degeneration and erosion of the cell membranes set in. Let's see what happens in the arteries. So this is an artery the way it should be, and the tube is as wide as possible for the blood to be pumped through by the heart. Now, when oxidative stress sets in on the membranes of the artery cells, then there's erosion, there's the oxidative stress on the inside of the membrane. Now, this is when LDL cholesterol will rise. We will produce more LDL cholesterol. Now, one thing I want to make clear, God doesn't make anything bad. Everything is significant and has a distinct purpose. LDL cholesterol is not your enemy. It's not my enemy. It is not the bad cholesterol as it is made out to be. LDL cholesterol is a life-saving mechanism in our self-healing mechanisms. So imagine, and this is now in a very simplistic way, imagine LDL cholesterol being your polyfiller. And when the cell membranes of the artery erodes and degenerates, and there's a hole formed in, the polyfiller, the LDL cholesterol, will come to patch it up. But when the oxidative stress does not decrease, it doesn't get addressed, then LDL will just gather and gather and form layers. These will later calcify when it's oxidized, and then we see blood clots forming in the artery tube. Now imagine in this artery, the heart pumps the blood and it flows, it pushes through even to extremities in the capillaries of like my fingers, my toes, etc. But in an oxidized, calcified artery, then we see the tube getting thinner. And that is when the heart has to pump harder to push the blood through. But when these blood clots start forming because of the oxidized LDL, that is when the danger sets in. Just another image of how the erosion, degeneration, oxidation of the artery cell membranes will start forming plaque. The plaque will build up, and then the blood clots will form. So let's look at another way oxidative stress impacts our arteries and blood flow. So when the erosion and degeneration of the artery wall set in, there's restricted blood flow, as we've just discussed in the previous slides, causing the blood pressure to rise because the heart has to pump harder to push the blood through a thinner tube. Now, if that starts happening and all the plaque gets forming, that is when the artery walls get stiff, it gets hardened. The medical term is atherosclerosis sets in. Now, if the artery walls are normal, they can expand and shrink as the heart pumps the blood through. But the moment it gets stiff and hard and rigid, and now the tube is thinner, and the heart has to keep on pumping higher and higher, and the walls won't expand. So it's becoming harder for the heart to pump the blood through the thinner tube, and the walls are not expanding and restricting, causing lots of problems. That will also then, as we've explained, cause the LDL cholesterol to rise. It will gather there because it's trying to mend the damaged cell tissues. That gets oxidized. It gets hardened, it calcifies, and we can get blood clot forming. Now, the real problem is when those, even just one of those blood clots, gets freed from that clotting. That's when we can have a pulmonary embolism, we can have a stroke in the brain, deep vein blood clots. People, this is serious. But look where it started. It started with oxidative stress. If you want me to give you a prescription to get higher blood pressure, higher LDL, oxidative stress, restricted blood flow, atherosclerosis, high risk of embolisms, strokes, blood clots, these are the foods you must focus on eating, guaranteed. This is going to cause the problem. Not my opinion. When we started this clip, I have shown you all the research points to ultra-processed foods. These are the cause of 10 of the leading causes of death. Oxidative stress can happen in any organ. It will affect all functionality of the body and every single, your immune system, your nervous system, your brain, your kidney system, the cleansing of the blood, the heart system, the liver system, the digestive system, the artery system, all systems, no exceptions, will negatively be affected by oxidative stress. I've just mentioned the digestive system. So let's look at leaky gut. Oxidative stress eroding and degenerating the cell membranes, which is a single cell layer in the gut lining. If those get eroded, there's holes that form into the wall. Now, from the gut, foods, we spoke about all these ultra-processed foods, sprayed maybe with toxins, insecticides, full of chemicals. Those can leak into the arteries, into the bloodstream, and that can go through the blood-brain barrier, and that can cause really serious issues and problems. So you will see all digestive, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, diverticulosis, leaky gut, all the gut issues. This is where it starts. Now let's explore chronic inflammation, the silent chronic inflammation. As I mentioned, we've all experienced acute inflammation at a certain point in time, and that is part of the healing mechanism. So if any damage has been done to any part of the body, soft tissue, heart tissue, the brain, the lungs, your ankle, your knee, acute inflammation will go there to ensure no infection sets in. It heats up, makes a fire, and it brings inflammation to kill off all the pathogens, all the bacteria, viruses, things that could cause infection, so that the healing can take place. But once acute inflammation has done its self-healing work, it must be switched off. Otherwise, it will become silent chronic inflammation. And this is what we're going to talk about today. Chronic inflammation can take place and cause many, many disorders. In the case of obesity, there's definitely 100% chronic inflammation. Arthritis, joint pain, all kinds of osteorheumatoid arthritis, etc., all related to the chronic inflammation. Lung cancer, all cancers, breast cancers, colon cancers, you can name them. Cardiovascular diseases. We spoke about the atherosclerosis. We spoke about blood clotting. All allergies, hay fever, food allergies, all related to chronic inflammation. Eye disorders, macular disease, any other, asthma, diabetes, colitis and Crohn's disease in the gut, all infection, injuries, psoriasis, eczema, you can name them, they are all related to chronic inflammation. This is just images to give you a visual image of what inflammation, chronic inflammation, can look like and what could be the result if it's consistent. And why we call it silent chronic inflammation is because often people don't have symptoms, or the symptoms start so gradually that they don't realize they're not in a normal state anymore. And that is when we get the sudden heart attack, the sudden stroke. That is when somebody goes for a vitality or other test, and then suddenly the doctors, the pathologist, send them for more tests, and we get like a terminal 4 cancer diagnosed. And people say, what? Yesterday was fine, and then 3 months, 3 weeks later, they pass on. Remember the 10 leading causes of death. Where does it start? It starts with a diet. It starts with ultra-processed foods. So this is how it could look like if it is prolonged and it is not addressed. This is an image of a real patient with psoriasis 1 month after we started treating her. 18 years she suffered from such severe psoriasis that even the bed linen or her clothes, if it would touch her skin, would pull out pieces of tissue out of her body. So they had to make a ring for her to sit in so that linen and clothes wouldn't touch her body. And she only allowed us to take a photo 1 month after we started treating her. As I mentioned, chronic inflammation is like a continuous fire that's burning inside the body, and it doesn't get put out. It becomes a silent chronic killer, silent chronic inflammation. If it's not addressed, if it's not stopped, the body will burn out. What I tell my patients is that on our health dashboard, like a car's dashboard, there are certain things that will flash. It will be warning lights that will come on. Blood pressure, as an example, is not a disease. It's a red light on your health dashboard flickering, telling you there's oxidative stress, telling you there's chronic inflammation. There is something wrong. It needs to be addressed. If we look at fat gain, if we look at blood sugar that's too high or insulin that's too high, LDL, triglycerides that are too high, digestive issues, bloating, constipation, reflux, insomnia, cannot sleep, chronic inflammation, you feel it in your joints, in your back, in your knees, in your ankles, even in the brain, causing headaches, migraines, pain, stress, chronic fatigue, exhaustion. These are all indicators on your health dashboard that's telling you something is wrong. Now, if in your car the oil indicator starts flashing, do you put a Band-Aid strip over and then you just drive on? If the fuel indicator says, oh my word, there's not enough fuel in the car, are you just going to keep on driving? What will be the consequence? What will be the end result? Well, your body is the same. When these lights come on, most of us, we pop a pill. And that is what medicine has become. It's a pop a pill philosophy. Pop a pill for this issue. That will cause many side effects. So we'll just pop another pill and another pill. And then when those side effects come in, we will pop another pill. And those side effects, we will pop another pill. And then we can't understand why we get sicker and sicker. I keep on asking myself, can't people realize in the most abundance of information, of medicine just growing, expanding in terms of knowledge, yet as that grows at the same rate, you know what grows? Disease, illness, and death from disease and illness. And there's a high probability from all this research I've shown you that it could be prevented. And you don't need a doctor, you don't need medicine to know how to prevent it. You don't need a prescription for it. So why aren't we doing it? Let's now get to the crux of it all. In the beginning, I said the primary, most fundamental root cause of all chronic and autoimmune diseases is nutritional deficiencies that cause cellular starvation and cell death. Nutritional deficiencies will cause oxidative stress, does cause, not by exception at all times. Nutritional deficiencies will cause the LDL to rise because there's nothing to protect the cells from the free radicals and erosion. Nutritional deficiencies do cause chronic inflammation to rise. Why? Because we don't have the off switch to switch off the acute inflammation. Hence the silent killer, the silent chronic inflammation that will not only lead to cell death, but could lead, and we see this from the research and the science, to actual death. In your mind, you may say, I don't have famine. I'm not starving. Look at my big tummy. I'm obese. Or you may be thin. And you say, but I eat enough. I'm not starving. How can you say my cells are starving? So these brands, the foods made from these brands are food-like substances. These are chemically produced, not only processed, ultra-processed foods, which are not food. It is food-like substances. It is high in calories, and most of them have zero nutrients in it. It boggles my mind if I walk into a grocery store and on the packaging, bread, flour, cereals, it says fortified with vitamins and minerals. And I go, really? How can food not have the nutrients? It defies logic. These are food-like substances. They are not food. Yet, what we see from the science, what we see from all the meta-analysis, this is what people eat. The Western diet, we call it the SAD diet, Standard American diet. High in calories, no nutrients, or very little nutrients. These are all ultra-processed foods, high in calories, very low to zero, poor in nutrients, nutrient-empty foods. And they will, not maybe, they all do. They cause oxidative stress at cellular level, LDL to rise, and they all cause chronic inflammation, the silent killer that will lead to the diseases that are listed as the 10 main primary causes of death. Chronic inflammation damages the body as we have seen. It causes fatigue, it causes memory and cognitive decline, gastrointestinal stress, joint and muscular pain, heart and pulmonary disease, blood sugar problems called type 2 diabetes, hormonal imbalances including thyroid, adrenal, PCOS, endometriosis, all those, autoimmune diseases, allergies, and skin conditions. As a summary, let's look at what causes oxidative stress, LDL to rise, and chronic inflammation. All forms of sugar, all forms, honey, fruit sugars, fruit juices, all sugar, gluten in all flour products, breads, pasta. May I add, even gluten-free doesn't work because it's a refined carb. processed, and it also causes oxidative stress, LDL to rise, and chronic inflammation. All corn-fed meat and dairy. Cows, sheep, chickens, they were not meant to eat corn and maize. Fish, farmed fish, were not meant to eat corn and maize. Fish were meant to eat algae. Cattle were meant to roam freely in the sun, walking, and their whole ruminant system, their different stomachs, where they regurgitate the grass and chew and digest and it chews and they move through to form real good meat, flesh for us to eat with all the nutrients in it from the grass. Sheep graze on the grass and the bush. Chickens were supposed to eat worms, insects, free roaming, not standing in their own poo, being injected with antibiotics and with estrogen and hormones to grow fat fast. Same with cattle in the feedlots. These days, I hear that the game farmers, I'm shocked. They put the game, the venison meat, they put them in feedlot, feeding them maize and corn. Artificial sweetness. Even if they don't rise your blood sugar, they do rise the insulin. Trans fat, hydrogenated oil, inflammatory fat, canola oil, sunflower oil, palm fruit oil, all these that they call vegetable oils are not vegetable oils, they're seed oils. And they're all hydrogenated, they're toxic, and they have the ability to cause cancer. Highly processed, doesn't exist. Seed oils. I'm not sharing this to scare you. I am sharing this to alert you, to wake up. And then I will give you the solution. So this is a case study that is taught in medicine school, and specifically where they train the cardiologists, the heart surgeons. Tim Russert died at the age of 58 on 13 June 2008. He died suddenly from a massive heart attack due to plaque rupture in the left anterior descending artery. I showed you what it looks like. A common cause of what they call sudden cardiac death. And that is when doctors will say, we don't know what caused this. But look at the scientific insight in this case study. His death highlighted the limitations of stress test and cholesterol-focused risk assessments for detecting underlying unstable atherosclerotic plaque. I shared about that. I showed you the images, especially non-obstructive plaques that can still rupture and kill when that blood clot loosens and it kills. So the autopsy really baffled the surgeons, the people. He had normal and slightly elevated cholesterol. He just 1 week prior to his death did all the full blood tests, lipid profiles, cholesterol test. He passed the stress treadmill test. He showed no major symptoms. He was a runner. He was fit. He was working with purpose. Everybody loved him in his family, his community where he was working, what he was doing with passion and purpose. Yet the post-mortem study showed severe coronary artery disease, a ruptured plaque that led to fatal arrhythmia. This contributed to the understanding that inflammation and plaque vulnerability matter more than just narrow arteries. So let's look at what this case study taught cardiologists, doctors, and can teach you and me. Tim Russett's death taught clinicians and researchers you can look fine on the outside, pass all the basic tests, blood test, stress test, and still have a dangerous underlying disease. Stress tests and LDL cholesterol alone aren't enough. His LDL cholesterol were just above average. It wasn't high. The real risk lies in inflamed, vulnerable plaque that doesn't cause narrowing but still rupture. Now, in future videos, I will specifically, for example, just do a clip on cholesterol. And I will just do a clip on anti-inflammatory properties to address acute inflammation so that we don't suffer from chronic inflammation. The question now is, what if there is a solution? And that is why I've asked you, stay to the end and please subscribe so that in my future videos, you will be able to see the solutions. There is a solution. There are many solutions. And you don't need a doctor's prescription, or a doctor's diagnosis for this solution. So let's ask, if those other tests, they didn't work, what if we can accurately test to determine where we lie on a health risk indicator? Would you be prepared to take that test? Or are you rather prepared to wait like Tim Russett and believe I'm fine, I have no symptoms, I'm fit, I'm young, I'm healthy? Look around you. Listen to the news and see how many people, young, fit, on a soccer field, are dropping dead. Read the research. 10 of the leading major causes of death worldwide can be prevented. What if there is an accurate test that can tell you where you lie? And what if there is a solution to address it effectively, sustainably, successfully? What if you and I can do a test and know where we lie on the risk indicator, in the red, the yellow, or the green zone? Whether you're suffering from any one or more of these health indicator red lights flickering on your health dashboard, or like me, you have no symptoms, blood tests show my blood sugar, my insulin, my LDL, my triglyceride, my lipid profile, cholesterol, everything is fine. I don't have arrhythmia. I don't have stress fatigue. I don't have digestive issues. What if we can test? Would you take the test? Or would you just leave it to fate? Do you want to just use the Russian roulette method? Or do you want to know and do something actively, proactively about it? If I could show you how to shift from the high-risk red zone, if we measure and you are there, towards and into the low risk or no risk green, thriving optimal well-being zone? Will you care to hear what I have to offer? The objective is not to suffer in fear. The objective is to find a solution and to implement the solution. Would you be interested? Subscribe and see what we have to offer. I told you, I'm not sharing my opinion. I'm not sharing anybody's opinion. I'm sharing with you gold standard research, global research from several institutes. In this case, this is a summary of what we have found in terms of omega-3 deficiencies. So omega-3 is a fatty acid. It is essential, meaning your body can't produce it. The only way you can get omega-3, which is essential, you'll die without it, is through the food you'll eat. And here is gold standard research by S.W. Elliott et al., William Harris, Jason Polrace, Mount Sinai. And this is just a summarized version of their research where they said, what are the serious health risks related to just omega-3 deficiency? Now, this is just a clue. The omega-3 is the most potent anti-inflammatory, the switch that can switch off the acute inflammation to prevent chronic silent inflammation. So what all these research, and there are many others, I've just summarized these. They showed if your omega-3 levels in the red blood cells are less than 8%, you're at a high risk, not a diagnosis, just a high risk of getting one or more of all these chronic or autoimmune diseases. I'll just read some. Unhealthy cholesterol levels, high blood pressure, and strokes, including blood clotting conditions, type 2 diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, systemic lupus, osteoporosis, heart conditions including heart attacks, depression, and all other bipolar type of mental disorders, ADHD, attention deficit, hyperactivity, cognitive decline, including memory loss, brain fog, not being able to focus, attention deficit, skin disorders. We saw the psoriasis, the eczema, all of those. Macular degeneration, when the eyesight goes. Inflammatory bowel disease, menstrual pain, PCOS, endometriosis. Not only colon cancer, all cancers, breast and prostate cancer, asthma, even things like schizophrenia. They know you're at a high risk if your omega-3 levels are below 8%. If they go below 4%, you're not only at a risk of getting one or more, there's not only a high probability of you getting one or more of these diseases. The risk is that those diseases could be fatal. That's where we started the research, this video, about the research that shows the 8 leading causes of death, of which heart attack is number 1. And that is sudden cardiac death because of omega-3 deficiencies. Now, Tim Russett's blood tests and stress tests didn't test for omega-3 deficiency. What if we can do such a test and know? Would you take it? We're still looking at gold standard research. This is the latest study that I know of, 9 August 2025, published just a month ago. It is the most randomized study that I know of. It's one of the biggest anonymous, double-blind, placebo studies I know of. 590,000 high blood, dry blood spot tests finger pricks, dry blood, sent to an independent, the pioneering, leading blood pathology laboratory in the world from, if it wasn't 100 countries, it's close to 100 countries, different diets. And these people have taken omega-3s, fish oils, cod liver oils, krill oils. They've taken supplements, or they trusted their diet to be clean and healthy, often prescribed by nutritionists. The supplements prescribed by their doctors, their health professionals, well-researched, clean, pure oils. They all came from the different brands available worldwide, except one brand, which I will mention in another video clip. And what this study has found is shocking. Not one of these 590,000 blood tests showed that any one of these people are out of risk of all those chronic diseases we've just discussed, including heart attack, stroke, schizophrenia, mental disorder, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, cancer, diabetes, etc. We're talking just risk. They are all at high risk because we've seen that other studies show that you are at risk for it. We saw all the other meta-analysis studies are at risk. And these show these people are paying a lot of money for the right diets, clean diets. They're paying a lot of money for their supplements. And the shocking truth is they're all at risk. They're all at risk. They are all deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. And their omega-6 to omega-3 ratios are out of balance. Omega-6 is an essential fatty acid. I told you acute inflammation is a self-healing mechanism. We will die if we don't have it. It is like omega-3, an essential fatty acid. We can only get it through the food we eat. The body can't produce it. But the ultra-processed and processed Western diets are high in omega-3s. And it contains high in omega-6, high in omega-6. And it contains little to no omega-3. And if that ratio is out of balance, it will cause silent chronic inflammation because the off switch, the omega-3, is too low and it can't switch off the acute inflammation. And this is a turning point. This is a pivotal anchor in gold standard randomized double-blind placebo studies, that none of it that's available at the moment is working. But I have good news. Please subscribe. I will share with you what is the solution. And we know this from 1.5 million and more anonymous independent blood tests. There is a test to test and to know. The question now is, what else can you and I do without doctor's prescription, without doctor's diagnosis, to prevent all those 10 leading causes of death? What else can I do not to be the victim of systems, of marketing gimmicks, money-making promises, silver bullet pills, injectables, money-making treatments and protocols with serious and severe consequences? We've seen that they cause oxidative stress. We've seen from the study I've just shared that they don't work. Not in terms of omega-3 deficiency, which is the most potent anti-inflammatory. So let's get to some solutions. I promised you there's hope and there's solutions. Number one, I would say, as much as possible, cut out the processed foods, hydrogenated oils, all the sugars of any kind, those that are causing the oxidative stress, the LDL to rise, and the acute inflammation that doesn't get switched off and becomes silent chronic inflammation. So number one, elimination of those things we see the signs have shown are causing all these deaths, diseases that will culminate and end in death. Second solution, add as many omega-3 oily real whole fish, sardines, mackerel, anchovies, and salmon to your diet as much as you can. Third tip to practically implement. It's easy. You don't need a prescription. All you need to do is eat olives and use copious amounts of olive oil on your meals. Now, if you don't like olives, this is the time to start acquiring the taste to love olives. It is one of the best snacks you can have. It's a nutritional food full of polyphenols. They are the best protectors, not the only, but one of the best protectors of that oxidative stress that you want to prevent. Pour copious amounts of olive oil over your food, but don't cook with it. You've got to buy the extra virgin cold press. Cold press. Why is it cold press? Because the toxic point of olive oil is very low, the smoking point. So it goes toxic if it heats. So if you've got your baked roasted vegetables, or you have your meat, your steak, you can drizzle that over. That won't go toxic, but you can't cook with olive oil. That's why it's called extra virgin cold press. But eat as much, acquire the taste. This is your third tip to prevent these diseases. Fourth, but a very important tip. If you can go carnivore as close as possible to carnivore, ketovore, you will minimize your risks. Remember, I can't make medical claims. I'm not God. I'm not Yahweh Rapha, the only physician, the only healer. But we see many anecdotal case studies. We see more and more people on the carnivore or the ketovore diet healing from serious chronic diseases, serious stuff. We will share some of those testimonies. But if you can eat free-roaming, grass-fed, grass-finished, and bug-eating chickens and chicken eggs, eat the fat on the meat. Those are superb. They heal those myelin sheaths of the nerves and the neurons and the brain cells. Your brain is mostly made of cholesterol and fat. All cell membranes is made of cholesterol and fat. Your LDL cholesterol may rise slightly. May. Your triglycerides will 100% come down. And those are the better indicators, risk indicators of heart attack and stroke. Not LDL, triglycerides. They come down on a carnivore diet. We know this is the best alkaline detoxing elimination diet where you can start testing for typically allergies, those things that is harming your body, causing the oxidative stress. So this is the fourth, but a very, very important tip if you want to prevent all those leading causes of death. Tip number 5 for today. Learn how to address stress. Stress is not a maybe. It is a fixed variable. We just don't know when, how, and how often, and the intensity or the frequency. But stress is part of our lives. The clue and the tip is, how do I address the stress? Because if I don't do it, it's going to diminish, deteriorate my immune system. And one of the most critical, vital ways to address these 10 leading causes of death that will prevent, apart from the elimination of ultra-processed and processed foods, the adding of the good oils and fats and proteins, sleep is your best medicine. In future videos, I will share and I will unpack and explore with you, for example, sleep. I will explore with you these tests and what products you can take. I will explore with you dietary options, but we will also explore sleep. This is a critical. Make sure you sleep 7 to 8 or maybe even 9 hours per night. You can't catch up sleep. And your body has to go through the 3 sleep cycles to go into the deep sleep. Because in the deep sleep, that is when your cell membranes can repair, restore, rejuvenate, and duplicate to make new healthy cells. And that is what we want. Tip number 6 for today. Make sure you spend time outdoors, especially in the sunlight. We're living in sunny South Africa. But write a new life story. Find purpose in your life. People deteriorate and they physically die. They first die spiritually, then their soul dies. Mentally they die, and then physically they die if they have no purpose in life. Find a purpose. Find a passion for you to live. Live outside in the sun. Move in the outdoors. Like this tree, become resilient to the stress, the storms of life and the winds. And go and serve your community. Serve people. This is what you must do. This is bringing health. Tip number 7 for today, to prevent all those 10 leading causes of death to play a role in your life. Have fun, move, be in the sunlight, be outdoors, build relationships, nurture the relationships, rest, not just sleep, just rest, do other things, fun stuff. Live life with passion and with purpose. Seize the moment. Carpe diem. Time seconds tick by. But let's use and capitalize the time to build beautiful memories and nurturing relationships. Seize the moment, build the memories, nurture the relationships. Tip number 7 for today. Let's get back to truth. This channel is all about truth. So you are free to choose. You can't unknow what I've just shared with you because you know. But remember, you are not free from the consequences of your choice. So maybe after this, you'll go, oh, sounds like too much effort. Not going to put it in practice. But then understand you are choosing the consequences of that decision. You, me, we all have a free will and choices. When you choose, remember, you choose the consequences. And we've given you at least 7, maybe more, but at least 7 tips how to prevent. Maybe this week you can implement one, and the week thereafter, another one, and the week thereafter, another one, or the month thereafter. You choose. You have the choice. Choose your DNA. Do you want it eroded by oxidative stress, chronically inflamed, or do you want healthy DNA? Choose. You are now standing in front of two doors. You have at a minimum two choices, one decision. You choose. Nobody else can choose for you. You now have the knowledge. You are empowered to be empowered to take accountability, not only about your decision, but you choose the consequences. The data is clear. Heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, all the medical fates awaiting to strike. They are lifestyle driven, not my opinion. You've seen all the meta-analyses, all the signs, all the double-blind placebo, all the studies point just to one thing. They're lifestyle driven, they're diet driven, environmental driven, and choice driven. Science, disease, they don't have to strike. You can lower your risk of those having an impact on your life, on your health. I'm not fear-mongering. This is not about fear. It's about freedom. That's what you've got to understand. I'm doing this. I'm sharing this with you so that you can choose freedom for yourself. Life, health, freedom. It's about your health. I'm sharing with you guided knowledge rather than prescriptions. I'd much rather have you make the decisions for yourself and not come to me. It's disastrous when people come and they're so sick that they can't get out of bed. I've even had patients where a loved one, a husband, a parent, a child of a parent, they had to come for the consultation. The patient was too sick. But it's reversible. But it's so difficult if you're already at the terminal stages. Rather make the choice now. You choose. At the end of the day, we all face choices. We can choose prevention, or we can choose the path of disease. That could inevitably lead to death. But we cannot choose to escape the consequences. Once you know the truth, you know it now. You cannot unknow it. The power is no longer in a doctor's diagnosis or a prescription. It's in your daily decisions, the habits you form. And that I will coach and teach you on. That's my promise. This is what I will do. It's in your decision. It's your choice. You are now empowered to be empowered to take the accountability. You must take the ownership of your decision and take ownership of the consequences. Commit to thriving optimal well-being. The choice is yours, not mine, not the doctor's, not the specialist. The consequences is yours to make the decision. You are not going to like what I'm going to tell you now, because you can't hide under this truth any longer. From today onwards, you know. You can't unknow. So you must make the decision. Tomorrow may be too late. The day after, the week, the month, next year's too late. You've got to make the decision now. You're standing in front of the door. But this is the part you're not going to like. It is not your genetics. There is probably less than 1% diseases related to genetics. Don't buy the story, the lie from the devil that it's your genetics. You can't inherit cholesterol. You can't inherit cancer. You can't inherit diabetes. You can't inherit any of those. You inherit the lifestyle. You inherit the thinking. You inherit the habit. You inherit the diet. It is not your genetics. I know you don't like to hear this, but stop being the victim of lies. Take ownership. It is not your family history. It is a family history of what you eat. It's a family history of your diet. It's a family history of your thinking. It's a family history of your lifestyle. That is what's causing it. But that you can change. You can't change your genes, but that's not the problem. That's not what the science showed is the problem. The problem is the ultra-processed foods, the lifestyle choices we make. You choose. From today onwards, you can make responsible, informed, and wise decisions. These decisions, if you choose wisely, will shift you and your family towards and eventually into the zone of thriving optimal well-being. That is my passion. That is my prayer for you. Choose right. If you want to explore more, here is a link, and I will pop it in the show notes at the bottom so that you can follow the link if you want to read more about the solutions we offer at Radical Results. If you are serious about thriving optimal well-being, register and become a member of our community, Thriving Wellbeing Community. Here's another link for other products that you could explore if you wish, that will offer you more solutions. Thank you for spending time with me. And I pray deep from my heart that you will make the right choice. It is really my heart-driven passion to bring the information to you so that you can make wise and informed decisions. God bless you, and God bless the decisions you make and knowing the consequences.